Hello, welcome to another episode of Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. This week we are talking to Christie Mann. Hey, Christie, how are you?
Hello, Louisa. I'm great. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for saying yes and joining in the conversation.
And thank you for creating this incredible, important movement.
I appreciate it. So I'm going to read your bio, tell the people
Cool.
about you, and then we're going to have a conversation.
Let's do it.
Okay, known for her fiery energy, hunger, and enthusiasm to learn, grow, expand her consciousness, and share her learnings, Christie Mann is a best selling author, spiritual psychologist, leadership coach, learning consultant, and trainer for CTI. Speaker with Kundalini Yoga and meditation teacher who designs and facilitates transformational content and experiences that make our world a happier, healthier, more connected place to be. A two-time in-group health presenter, she is the creator of the Emotional Leadership Academy, a 6-week virtual intensive meant to unstuck, unf, unnumb yourself, and get more energy. Developed after the overwhelming response from adults with the release of The Adventures of Little Sass, a series of emotional wellness books for young people. Christie draws inspiration for the characters, stories, courses, and tools she creates from her own life experiences, trainings, and practices, and is in awe of children's resilience and emotional flexibility, and champions adults' rights to have and express emotions too. I love that. I love it.
Yes, Louisa. Yes.
Welcome, Christie. That is
Thank
beautiful.
you.
I wanna know all about that. All about it.
Oh, wait, where do we start? Sometimes I hear it and I'm like, wow, that's exhausting. All that stuff. Where should we start? What do you think would best serve your audience, or what are you most curious about?
I love it. Let's talk about getting unstuck and uneffed and unnumbed and all that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I am, like I said at the end of the bio, I'm a champion for adults to feel their emotions too. And one of the things about working with adults over the past 2 decades, from a leadership development standpoint, what I've noticed is that adults are more likely to give themselves permission to feel, to express their vulnerability, to express any emotion when it's in relation to the children in their lives.
Gotcha.
It's like, we have cultural conditioning that it's not okay to be emotional beings, but for some reason, when it has to do with our children, we allow ourselves to go there. So, do you hear a bit of an echo? I don't
Oh no,
want to.
no echo on
No?
my end.
Okay, cool. And so I wrote the Adventures of Little Sass for their children's books, but they're really for adults, to teach adults how to be in relationship with their own emotions and to talk to kids about their emotions. And so from those books, I created the Emotional Leadership Academy, which is a place where I bring adults together from all different cultures, all different industries, all different places, and we look at the fact that we're emotional beings. And I've done some extensive research around the science and evolutionary purpose of our emotions, which has really, I know, helped me give myself more permission when I understand the science. And I think it helps a lot of us adults. We dive into the cultural conditioning we've received, and then we focus in on the primary emotions of sadness, anger, and joy. And then I've introduced different tools from Kundalini Yoga and meditation, from spiritual psychology, and from my leadership development background to help our participants and adults be more emotionally flexible, emotionally resilient, to embrace their emotions as if they're friends coming over for a cup of coffee versus, the person that you are trying to avoid. It's like,
right.
Right? Let's let this part have its voice too.
So
So that's
why
a
do
little
you?
bit about it.
I love that. So why do you think adults only allow themselves to dive into those emotions regarding children and not dive into them regarding themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. And of course, that's not true. There are some adults that are
Yeah.
really emotionally resilient and have that emotional leadership, is what I'm calling it. But I think for most people, they weren't raised in a household where they had role models that when they cried or when they had a temper tantrum or when they, were angry, or even maybe when they were really joyful, that the role model would, like, what I call, and in my industry, like, we call it holding space, which really just means like being neutral, creating safety so that person can just express. Right. I know specifically, like, I was told, okay, well, good girls don't get angry. That's just not what good girls do. And,
Gotcha.
and like sadness, that's something that you do by yourself in private. Don't be a bore. That was a message I received. Like, don't be a bore. Don't bring that, and then even with joy, I mean, in some cases I had conditioning around, if you're too joyful, if you bring too much joy, then people will think that you're bragging, or that you're just like so positive that you're just not grounded, you're ditzy or something. And all of these judgments that, and I think a lot of us would receive a different variation, a different flavor of that. Does that like make sense, Louisa?
It does.
I mean, you're so positive. Like, you're so positive. Have you ever run into like emotional judgment where someone's like, "How can you be up up all the time?"
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I get it, and but I also think that feeling all the emotions is important as well. And
Yes.
so I love that you're helping people dive into that and to really tap into it and feel it and not shy away from
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
it. So how did Little Sass come about?
Yeah. So Little Sass, I've got there's 3 books: The Adventure of Anger, The Adventure of Sadness, and The Adventure of Joy. And you'll see, behind me in my office, there's capes and the books, and the character had been floating around in my head and in my consciousness for quite some time. And I always knew I wanted to write a book. I didn't know specifically what about. And there was one Christmas holiday, I decided to spend the holiday by myself. And leading up to the holiday, I had Little Sass, who was, a character in my mind that I was kind of talking to and like getting to know and like sketching out almost. I had her like buy me presents for Christmas.
I love that.
It would be like a real person with me at Christmas.
Right.
And then the day after Christmas, I woke up and I felt really ready to tell her stories. And I just wrote, and I wrote for a whole day. And it ended up being about this little girl who goes on these adventures to learn how to be with her emotions. And she gets this red cape from this woman named Mrs. Moo, who's a healer that lives on her property. Mrs. Moo gives her the cape and she says, "You'll have sad days, angry days, joyful days. Use this cape to feel your emotions. That is your right as a human being." And so Little Sass does that. She goes on all these adventures. She in these books, she lives in Venice Beach, California. So she goes down to the Venice Beach roller rink, and she has a whole bunch of friends down there. But something will happen that will elicit an emotion. And she thinks about all of the conditioning she's received that basically says, don't feel it. And then she puts her cape on. She says, "No, I'm going to feel it. Mrs. Moose said it's okay to feel it."
Yeah.
And she feels it. And then she's like, "Oh, I feel so much better." Because she just allowed the energy to move, right? It's just emotion is energy in motion. That's all it is. So Little Sass came about from like just, you know, a little dream in my head, in my heart. And the whole process after, you know, anyone who's written a book knows that like just getting out in paper is like the first step. And then there was a whole journey of learning how to have it edited, have them edited, self-publish, market them, illustrate them. So my vision is that Little Sass will go on many, many more adventures. But, you know, Big Sass is just taking a little break from that right now.
I love that. So, cape on. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Like when you have your cape on and just what does that mean?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I've kind of joked sometimes and said, you know, I've always loved capes because I've always loved superheroes. And I wrote the book so that we could have capes and a character that have capes, because I don't know about you, Louisa, but when I put on a cape, I feel the superpower stance. You know, I feel more powerful. I feel more like full permission, you know? And in the context of the Adventures of Little Sass, the cape gives her full permission to feel, which, you know, so I always say to even, you know, my friends or clients, I'll just say, if they're like going through a rough time or an amazing time, I will say, cape on, you know, and that's my version of like, you can do this, or you've got this, or sometimes I say, just let her rip, you know, like, just like, let it out, just let it happen. Let stuff move through you. So that's my language for, you know, cape on. It's like, let's do this. Like, let it rip.
I love that. I love that. I can just picture you just screaming, cape on.
I mean, all the time. You know, before these books, I used to dress up as Supergirl and drive over to my friends' homes with children and just play superheroes with them, you know? And call me strange or just call me a big kid that, you know, wants to feel fully self-expressed and feel her emotions. Like, that's kind of what it's about for me.
I love that. And so you say kids have the resiliency to feel emotions and to really be with them. When do you think that transitions to when we become adults? Like when do you think that time frame is that the switch is flipped?
Really good question. I don't know from a pure scientific behavioral age stage. I don't know that. I think it's pretty young though, from what I've observed in the children in my life. And specifically if they're getting messages from parents or caretakers or school teachers about, no, like that's inappropriate to feel. Yeah. I've seen kids as young as, you know, 4 or 5 start to question their emotions. And that really concerns me, you know, because when we stifle our emotions, we create dis-ease in our bodies and dis-ease in our minds. There is so much data, so much scientific data that disease or that suppressed emotion leads to cardiovascular issues, cancer, even mental health issues, you know. So that's why I'm really talking to adults, but I'm, you know, going through the kids, because kids know how to be flexible. It's then when a caretaker or a parent or a teacher is like, stop being a little brat, you know, you're just like, stop emoting. And okay, don't get me wrong, I know there's times where it's such a challenge because kids they're having a moment and they need a timeout, or they need something else, right? And it's hard for the caretaker or the parents to always have that level of awareness, consciousness. And so like I have so much compassion. And what I am wanting though is for caretakers and adults to be very aware of how they're talking about their own emotions and how they're talking to their kids about their emotions. Yeah. You know, are they creating space for it? Because if not, then there is, my entire generation.
Right.
And like we're working through it. We're working through it, right? But it's like, does it have to be like that? Does it really have to be like that?
Yeah. And I think you hit on something in regards to imprinting, really, because of either imprinting our fears or imprinting whatever onto the child, how you speak, the tone that you use, the language that you use. Kids can take that and then it really impacts them not only emotionally but psychologically, and all of that. And so I think we have to be very aware of the way we speak, not only to each other but to kids and to ourselves as well.
Yes. When I think about make kind loud, your movement, and I was thinking about this in preparation for our time together, I think one of the kindest things we can do is to be aware of how we're talking to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Not just about our emotions, but about anything. And when we don't allow kind of any natural part of ourselves, we're not being kind.
Yeah.
I mean, I do this. I work with clients, one-on-one with clients or groups of people, and even just friends and family. That's like they're in such pain, but they don't want to feel it. They don't want to create space for it because it's weak, or they have so much shame if they dropped into those emotions, or there's such fear that if they dropped into those emotions that they'll never come out. If they really let themselves feel the pain, then they won't ever get out of bed. And I understand that. I have had bouts of depression in my life where I get where we're like, it's hard to get up. It's hard to get out. I think that's where the cape is helpful, even metaphorically. It's like having the courage to feel allows us to experience more of our full range as a human. Yeah. And when we do that, we're being kind to ourselves, and then we can help others do that. That's the next level. It's like now you can hold space for others who are experiencing pain or joy. It's hard for a lot of people even to be with people's joy. They'll push that down too. So make kind loud, be kind to ourselves, and create space for ourselves to feel so that we can do that for others. There's the pay it forward.
I love that. So especially in the time that we're in currently, what the world is feeling, what the world is going through, whether it be the pandemic or whether it be racism or whatever the situation may be, what would your advice be to people in regards to their emotional wellness during this time?
Yeah. We are living through such I've been calling it a holy moment. And I don't mean that in a religious way. And actually it's one of my friends and teachers, Kath Eozas, who said that to me first. And I feel like there's this huge awakening happening on planet Earth. And so there are a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of death and destruction because there is a lot of rebirth. So death and rebirth is painful and emotional, and it's laboring. We're laboring as a race. We're laboring. Humanity is laboring. So my guidance is to feel it, is to feel it. And if you don't have the tools, I'm going to give some really simple tools. Okay. Just if you're experiencing, say, a lot of rage, you're feeling a lot of rage, a lot of anger, close your bedroom door and punch the pillow. Punch the pillow or scream into the pillow. This is something that somatic therapists do with their clients all the time. The energy needs to move, and you're not hurting anybody else. You're putting yourself in a confined space and you're moving the energy. Do work with a therapist or a coach or a friend that you know can hold space. What that just means is they're not going to try to fix you. They're not going to try to take you out of your experience, but they're going to allow you to be where you are. You know, people don't necessarily have to be therapists and coach. They're just like everyday people that actually know how to do that. They're just gifted in that way, right? And so hopefully we all have somebody like that in our life. Find that person and let them hold space for you. There's so many other tools. Like I protested on the weekend. And I think protesting right now to move our emotions is a really healthy way to move emotion. You know, what we're chanting at these protests, they're mantras. They're mantras. And that as a collective, when we're all saying that together, we are moving energy.
Yeah.
We are literally moving emotion from the pain body of the collective, from our, you know, our Black brothers and sisters, and supporting to move this pain. Yeah. So, you know, the theme is movement, and not, gotcha. I'm not like, I know a lot of people, they have a strong like physical workout practice that allows them to help with their emotional wellness. I think that can work too. And I just think that we can bring a little bit more consciousness around really creating space for the emotional piece. Right. So, you know, and there's a lot of great breath work and meditation tools that allow us also to sit with our emotions and just let it come up and observe it, you know, and let it move. Yeah. And I love that. Lisa, is that like, do you think that's helpful stuff? Is it?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I love how you say it's about moving the energy. And so, but you have to, you know, get in there to move the energy. And it can be a little uncomfortable at times, but if you can work through it, then on the other side, it's beautiful.
Definitely. And I think it's meant to be, there's meant to be discomfort, because it's like a death and a rebirth happening within our, the emotional body. And then that impacts our physical body, you know, right. and our energy. So, yeah, I hope, Louisa, with everything that's happening in our world, that there's just more consciousness around the fact that we're emotional beings. Yeah. And that we need to create space for ourselves and for others to express themselves. Actually, we all need to learn how to be space holders. You know, I made it. I agree. You don't have to just be a coach or a therapist. You know what? I actually think we all need the fundamental skills of how to listen deeply to people, and how to not try to fix something, but rather just hold. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the problem with a lot of us is that we want to fix first, and then also the not really listening, because you're just waiting to reply. And so to the really listening and hearing what they're saying, and not just, you got one tidbit, now you have something to say, and so let me hold on to that tidbit so I can reply, but I'm not listening to the rest of what you're saying. Bingo. Like that's just it right there. I've mentioned that there's been a lot of organizations and different people reaching out to me since George Floyd's murder. It's been like really intensified. And what I've actually been bringing to people is teaching them the levels of listening, which comes from the Coactive Training Institute, where I'm on faculty and do corporate work. Mm-hmm. And it's been really valuable, because people don't know how to listen. We're not, just like we're not trained how to be with our emotions, we're not trained how to listen. And so this is another fundamental life skill that we all need so that we can be more kind.
Yeah.
With ourselves and with others. We need to learn how to listen. That's where it starts.
I love that. And I think that can be beneficial not only to adults, but also to kids, having that curriculum in the school somehow. But we have to have people able to teach that, people able to hold space for the kids so they can learn what holding space means.
Yes.
And then I think if we can get them when they're younger, then it's a muscle that you practice throughout your life, and then it gets better as you get older.
Yes, to that. Amen. I mean, we've got so much work to do in our world, and we've just gotten started with what's the stay at home quarantine was an antecedent from my perspective for this massive tearing down of structures and systems that no longer serve us.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time for us to rebuild, and it's going to take consciousness. It's going to take kindness. It's going to take stamina. It's going to take listening. Individually, we need to be doing our own work. We need to feel the pain and the destruction, and we need to find the courage to do the next best thing, and to take the next best step.
Yeah. And I think what you just said, stamina, is the huge thing, right? Because it can get tiring and it can get frustrating and exhausting, but we can't stop. Like that is the work, right? Is to keep going with it. And so how would you help somebody with stamina, with staying in the fight?
Yeah, it's great. We have to take mini breaks. Because to hold that level of emotion 24/7 for years on end, I don't think that that's actually sustainable.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to have our allies internally in our head, but also externally in our communities and in our world, because we need to pass the baton and take turns holding the energy of this massive shift that is happening.
Right.
When we're taking breaks, so I've gotten deep into the practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation, and my teachers, they're like Jedis. They're Jedi, and I'm not going to say I'm not anywhere close to that, but they have this stamina because they meditate so much that their brain doesn't pull them into lower thought forms. Like a lower thought form, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. It's too hard.
Right.
Which it happens to all of us. This is just part of being human. But when people really harness this brain, they have a way of having a stamina. And like in yoga, they say, look, we're going to hold the pose. So in Kundalini yoga, we'll hold a pose for 62 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and chant a mantra. And that is training the brain that in times of war, in times of revolution, in times of transformation, how to stay the course. So I am recommending, I always will recommend meditation as a tool in this day and age to be able to manage the energies that are on the planet, to be able to be a part of the change that we're wanting to take place, that is happening.
Yeah.
And the rest that we take. Now, listen, I like a good binge watch of Netflix once in a while. I'm like, I love a cheeseburger and French fry, and and I know my meditation teachers. I mean, they're about the carbs, but they don't eat meat and things like that. And I do like a nice cold beer on a patio too. There are some of these little things that I feel like we need little joys. They're like little joys that I know after quarantine, I was just so looking forward just to sitting on a patio on a sunny day with a nice cold beer. You know, like, so there's little things that I want to encourage us to keep weaving in as we keep our stamina up and we keep our focus on the revolution, on the transformation. But I do think that it's never going back to how it was.
Yeah.
You know, people who are still saying that, I'm like, wake up. It is never going back. And I actually don't see the pace of, I just see that there's going to be another layer of revolution that comes on top of this one. It's just going to keep happening. And that's exciting and it's scary, and we need to manage our energy. And if we are managing our emotions, it will allow us to manage our energy more effectively.
Yeah.
Boy, Louisa, you're bringing out lots of opinions in me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, you are amazing. And I could talk to you all day. I mean, the nuggets that you've given us have been beautiful. And I just really appreciate you and your heart and the work that you do in this world, because we need people like you for sure.
Oh, Louisa, we need people like you, and you know, and your movement is so critical, and now more than ever. So thank you for doing your good work, and thank you for being such a fan of emotional leadership and Lil Sass. You always bring such positivity into my world, and I appreciate that. You give good energy, you know, and that's another thing at this time is like the little hits of kindness and love. We all need to be giving that and taking it in and receiving it so we can keep going.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. This has been another episode of Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. And we have been talking to Christie Mann, who is just full of beautiful nuggets. And her mantra is cape on, okay?
Cape on.
Cape
on, my loves. Cape on. Feel your feels.
Feel your feels. Sit with your emotions and put your cape on and be a light in this world. So thank you, Christie, for that.
Thank you, Louisa, and love to all of your viewers. Keep going. Cape on, everybody.
Thank you. And we will see you guys next week with another episode of Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. Bye-bye.
Woo!